Channel subscriber Harold donated not one, not two, but 3 Dimir Control decks for today's video. He challenged me to play all 3 decks at 3 different price tiers to determine which control deck was King of Dimir. Starting in the $100 price bracket, we've got Team Ashiok, which features all of the normal stuff you'd expect out of a control deck, with Ashiok Nightmare Muse as our finisher. This 5-mana Planeswalker's +1 ability creates 2/3 creatures that can not only pressure your opponent's life total, but can also mill their deck. An ode to how it all started. Our second deck in the $300 price bracket is Team Sharknado. This list features more powerful card draw spells and board wipes, which our other 2 decks don't have access to for some odd reason. The finisher is none other than Shark Typhoon, which puts in that work over the course of today's video. Lastly, our most pretentious list comes in at 750 bones, Team Shieldred. And honestly, it kind of just looks like the blue-black version of Rakdos midrange. So which Dimir Control strategy will reign supreme? Let's find out. Ugh, I'm going to be playing Control for days here. Let's kick things off with our $300 list, the middle of the road, to see how it fares against its round 1 opponent, Boros Heroic, which is an aggressive red-white strategy that aims to pump and protect its creatures at instant speed. My opponent kicks things off on the play and leads off with a 10th District Legionnaire on turn 2. This hasty 2-drop, much like every other creature in their deck, grows larger every time its controller targets it with a spell. They put me down to 18 and pass the turn back. Now, right off the bat, when looking at my hand, you'll notice that I have no way to interact with what my opponent is doing. With that being said, I'm forced to play out my land and simply pass the turn back. Favored Hoplite joins the party on their next turn, and the Legionnaire grows 2 power larger when buffed with an Ancestral Anger. Now I want to point this out now. My opponent's leaving up a single white mana throughout the entirety of this game, which represents the potential for a protection spell for their creature. As is the case with Control, I draw my card, play my land, and pass it back. And as is the case with Heroic decks, double pump spell on their turn means the Legionnaire is now up to 7 power and I'm taking a hit all the way down to 6 life. I'm forced to use Extinction Event as my only removal for the Legionnaire on my next turn, which means I'm tapped out and exposed. Surprisingly, their only play is another Legionnaire and an attack for 3, putting me down to 3 life. I draw my only copy of the End and have hopes of snagging their 2-drop during their upkeep. But as expected, Lauren's Escape and God's Willing are enough to protect the Legionnaire through counter magic, and I'm run over. One of the big puzzles when playing with Control is having an understanding of the threats in the format and having the correct answers to combat those threats. I retool those answers with my sideboard, bringing in better removal, and hit submit. Game 2, I have a solid opening hand that allows me to take a peek at my opponent's hand with a turn 1 Thoughtseize. I opt to take one of their 2 threats, a Monastery Swiftspear, from their hand. They're left with a favored Hoplite and no way to protect it, so I'm feeling pretty good about my chances. I Fatal Push the creature on my turn to play around a top deck protection spell. And like a savage, they top deck another Swiftspear, pump it, and start to get to work on my life total. I'm down to 15. I cantrip a few times to look for an answer to the Monk, but I'm unable to find anything. Also, I have to say my opponent played this very well. They continue to work my life total with the Swiftspear and wait for me to produce an answer to their threat before they play out another one. I'm forced to spend 4 mana to exile the Swiftspear and still have 2 mana up for Change the Equation on their turn. After a few turns of drawing a land, eventually they stick another Heroic creature and another one, and I'm completely out of gas. I flooded out. We succumb to the pressure, and Team Sharknado is unfortunately 0-1. Let's check in with Team Shieldred and see how they're doing in their round 1 match. It looks like Team Shelly is in the midst of a battle, going to Game 3 against Sultai Soulflayer. It's a graveyard deck that can bestow every known ability onto its namesake creature, Soulflayer. Let's see if money can buy Shelly a win. Okay, this hand looks good, we'll keep it. Opponent with a Watery Grave tapped. We'll start with an Urborg and a Thoughtseize. We're going to take Gather the Pack out of this hand. Opponent with a Blooming Marsh, nothing else, back our way. Clearwater Pathway, play that out as a blue source into a Hearse. Dark Slick Shores, and end of turn, we'll eat Gather the Pack. I kept this hand solely on the strength of Unlicensed Hearse, the 2-mana artifact that can repetitively eat cards out of my opponent's graveyard, to hopefully keep their powerful strategy in check. Grizzly Salvage dumps 5 cards into their graveyard in response to my third Thoughtseize, but fortunately, their only threat in hand was the Soul Flare, which I was able to take with a discard spell. I pull my 4th land off the top and slam the team captain to start putting a clock on them. A Shieldred trigger and an attack puts them down to 16 life, but a Lola Troll on their next turn gets in the way of future attacks because of its ability to regenerate. After a few turns of staring at each other, I add Graveyard Trespasser to the board, which also should help to keep their graveyard in check, until they chain 2 Otherworldly Gaze into a Grizzly Salvage and the volume is just too much to keep up with. Urborg Scavengers, which is like a mini Soul Flare, enters play and eats a Talpa, bestowing all of its abilities and a 1/1 counter on the creature. The race is on. Untap. Second Shieldred. Flip our Werewolf. Shieldred, they lose 2. We're going to eat the 2 Zapalvas out of their graveyard. Opponent's down 6 life. 2 mana, another Salvage. Opponent moves to combat. Attacks. Trigger. Eat the Baloth. We take 4, go down to 12. In turn, make a token. Fire off Fatal Push. Opponent with a Stubborn Denial. Untap. Draw a Hive of the Eye Tyrant. Gain 2 life, up to 14. We're going to crew the Hearse. Tap the 2 tokens. Move to combat. Attack with the team. Ease the Talba. Draining Gain. Opponent blocks Shieldred. Blocks the Trespasser. They have a Beseju. Trigger Beseju. We'll get Watery Grave. Troll is dead. Second main. Another Shieldred. Another Hive. Pass the turn. Opponent's down to 3. Attack for 5. Eat the Shieldred. We'll take 10. Down to 5. Untap. We'll gain 2. Activate our Hive. And our opponent scoops 1-0. Last but least expensive, let's check in and see how Team Ashiok is doing in round 1.
Hey, stop that. Ow.
Okay, I guess not going so well. Ashiok, we'll check back in on you a little bit later. So after round 1, it was only our big spender Shieldred who walked away with a win. And unfortunately, round 2, everybody suffered a loss, to bring our total records and leaderboard to the following. But despite the poor start, I think things are going to turn around for at least one of our decks. Let's jump back in for round 3. Team Sharknado finds themselves paired into a pseudo mirror match against a Dimir Control deck that is utilizing Siphon Insight and Thief of Sanity to steal cards out of the opponent's deck and generate card advantage. I spend the early turns of the game by simply hitting my land drops and using a Fatal Push to kill their only threat, a Thief of Sanity, when it enters play. On the other side of the table, the fellow Dimir mage is busy spinning their wheels, casting discard spells and cantrips, but they aren't actually generating any card advantage in the process. They cast Siphon Insight after Siphon Insight, but it doesn't seem like they're actually getting ahead in doing so. They finally resolve a second Thief of Sanity, which I have a Fatal Push for, but just need a way to trigger Revolt to get it off the table. They connect with their Thief and steal a Scarab God out of my deck, attempt to cast it, but I have a counterspell locked and loaded. Strangely, they tap down in response to my counter for a Cling to Dust, and I'm able to sneak in my Torrential Gearhulk as a result. But like an idiot, I target Memory Deluge in my graveyard with the Gearhulk and immediately realize my mistake. Deluge lets you look at X cards and put 2 into your hand, where X is equal to the mana spent to cast the spell. But because Gearhulk lets me cast it for free, I get to look at a whopping 0 cards and draw 0 cards. It does nothing. Let's just say sloppy play on both sides. But fortunately, now they're tapped out and I have the opportunity to resolve a Shark Typhoon on my turn. Team, let's go to work. Let's cast it out. Pass the turn back. Opponent with a Consider. They keep a card, combat, attack, put us down to 16, put the end and negate into our graveyard, Siphon Insight, exile another card, 1 card in hand, 3 in exile. We're going to scry 2. I actually like both of those. Fortunately, my mana doesn't work out where I can do both though. We'll put the Typhoon on the bottom, dig through time on top, and just pass turn back. Opponent with Thought Erasure. We'll cast Dig Through Time, we'll get an 8/8 Shark. Opponent fires off a negate, no surprise there. 1 mana, Fatal Push, make another Shark. Opponent with a counterspell wasn't even going to kill the Thief, I just cast it because it made a Shark, and it was going to get discarded anyway. Opponent with a Shieldred's Edict, Shark's in play, nothing to take. They play a land, Attack for 1, we will gladly chump block. Draw into a confounding riddle. We're going to fire off Cling to Dust right now and hit the Siphon Insight. Trigger Shark Typhoon, make a 1/1, another Dig Through Time. That's actually really good. And because our opponent's tapped out, we're going to fire that off right now. Make an 8/8 Shark, and I'm going to put Shark Typhoon and Censor into my hand. Pass turn. Opponent with another Thief of Sanity. Sure. Confounding Riddle, make a 3/3. We'll put Memory Deluge to hand. Shieldred's Edict, 6 mana, another Shark Typhoon. Opponent's drowning in sharks. We'll move to combat. Attack for 8. Opponent's down to 8 life. And they scoop it up a game. We're going to take out a bunch of removal and bring in counterspells, discard, and some graveyard hate. Game 2 started much like Game 1. I hit my land drops and they cast cantrips, discard, Siphon Insight, and some more cantrips. On turn 4, I draw into a Thoughtseize and take a look at what they're working with. I opt to take Thief of Sanity out of their hand, as it's kind of the only card I really care about in their deck. The next few turns are Dirtlefest 2024, with more land drops, cantripping, and discard. The high point, I made a shark in response to a discard spell, which was pretty exciting. Thief of Sanity joins the party, but I have Shieldred's Edict with negate backup to ensure that the thief doesn't steal more of my stuff. Eventually, the game breaks when I draw a Memory Deluge. I cast it, they flash in my Torrential Gearhulk in response, and counter it with the negate that's in their graveyard. I then flash back my Memory Deluge on my turn, find Otawara and a Shark Typhoon, and I now have a fun line available to me. I can use the Otawara to bounce my Gearhulk, which they control, back to my hand. It's a pretty big blowout. I discard their hand and exile their graveyard with Go Blank, and now I can cast my Gearhulk, kill their Thief of Sanity, and all they've got is lands and the top of their deck. I like my chances. Draw Mystical Dispute. Not great, not terrible. Attack for 5. Opponent's at 10 life. They play a land, and we're going to cycle a Shark Typhoon, make a 6/6. And they scoop it up. 1 and 2. Back in the win column. Not too bad, Team Sharknado. Let's swing over to Team Ashiok and see how our $100 list is performing after 3 rounds. Hey, wait, what are you doing? Oh, okay. Good effort, though. So with Team Ashiok out of the picture, it's now up to Team Shieldred and Sharknado to take down the crown. Round 4 yielded wins for both lists, so it's all or nothing in round 5. Sure enough, both decks got paired into the same matchup, Amalia Combo, a creature-based combo deck that can gain immense amounts of life and make a 20-power creature all in one turn. Let's start with Team Shieldred and see how they fare. Take the play. Game plan is Shieldred. I think we can do better than this. We'll mulligan. Okay, and this has more interaction. We'll keep this. I think we'll get rid of the Meat Hook. Start with Dark Slick Shores and a Thoughtseize. I think we're going to get rid of the Amalia. Pass turn. Opponent with Thicket. Back to us. Spell Stutter. Underground River. Pass it back. There's Takanuma. Can't cast the Voice of Resurgence. Wild Growth Walker. I think we'll fire off Aether Gust. Put it on the bottom. Untap. Draw Thoughtseize. Really hoping for a land there. Can't cast anything we know about though, so I think we are going to stick this Bankbuster this turn. Opponent has their 3rd land, which means Voice of Resurgence is online. There it is. We draw Meat Hook Massacre. Once again, really looking for a land. We'll draw a card. Alright, found a land, not the one we're looking for though. Play it out, pass turn. Could be in trouble here. Opponent fires off Court of Calling for 1, gets a Lunarch Veteran. Back our way. Alright, find another land. Let's play that out. We're going to just destroy Voice of Resurgence. Opponent makes an Elemental, gains a life. They do have their 4th land. Shock it in. Attack for 3. We're going down to 15. Opponent with 4 in hand. Coming back to us. Path of Peril, not terrible. Let's fire off Thoughtseize. Collected Company. Spell Stutter. Oh my gosh. Coco, and Court of Calling. I think we have to take a Coco. That's crazy. Overgrown Tomb. Shock it in. 4 mana, Coco. See what this yields. Okay, opponent's going to gain a bunch of life. Don't think they can kill us this turn though. Amalia is going to trigger. Return to the ranks. Opponent is keeping that on top. Makes sense. Make a treasure. Attack for 4. We're down to 9. Untap. Watery Grave. Turn to the ranks on top. I think we have to get rid of everything here. Path of Peril. Okay, everything goes away. Shock in Watery Grave. Pass turn. Okay, opponent with Return to the Ranks for 2. They get Amalia and Innkeeper. Mana Confluence to hand. Play out a land. They have Court of Calling up. Draw card. Sleep Curse Fairy. Not gonna do it. Draw to negate, which can keep us alive. We need another land here, unfortunately. Play out the fairy. Resolves. Okay, opponent fires off Chord for 2. We will negate and hope they don't draw anything. Paying costs. Another Chord for 2. Yep. Wild Growth Walker. Bunch of triggers. Okay. Opponent is now at 87 life and has Aetherflux Reservoir on top of their deck. Could be a problem. Attack for 21. Activate the Bank Buster. Make a treasure. Chump block Amalia. Still at 6 life. So we can get rid of the Amalia. Can't deal with the Reservoir though, which is a bit of a problem. We'll kill the Amalia now. Take 3. Opponent's turn. Shocking Overgrown Tomb. And they're just going for it. Complete disregard for counter spells. We're dead. Amalia combo puts Team Shieldred in their grave, a disappointing 2-3 finish for our money deck. The pressure's on for Team Sharknado. Can they get it done? Showdown lands, we'll mulligan. 6 is medium, but I think we'll keep. And we can get rid of a Watery Grave, I think, and we'll go with it. Start with a Hive, pass turn. Put it with land tapped. Alright, we draw a Marsh, play out the island, pass turn. Put it with a Razor Verge Thicket, 2 mana for an Innkeeper. You got it. Draw Sabotage, don't hate to see it. Play out our Marsh, pass turn. Opponent hits their land drop, 2 mana, second Innkeeper. Sure, you can have that. Gain a life, no attacks. End of turn, I'm gonna Riddle. I think opponent's gonna fire off Court of Calling here. Chord for 2, you get a Voice of Resurgence, gain 2 life. Riddle, we're gonna get Extinction, Event, the other into the graveyard. Drawn to a negate, opponent has 4 in hand. I think we'll play out this Watery Grave tapped and pass the turn back. Opponent, Overgrown Tomb, shock. 3 mana for a Sentinel. I am going to counter that. They'll get a trigger. We'll be able to wipe it with Extinction Event. They gain 2. Thoughtseize. I actually really like that. We'll put that on top. Okay, so they have another Court of Calling. So we're going to bait that out of their hand. Thoughtseize. Chord for 2. We'll allow it. Another Voice. Triggers. They have 2 lands in hand. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Field of Ruin. Extinction Event. And we're going to name even. All right, friend. Here we go. Play out Mana Confluence. Pass it back. Alright, we draw a Pathway. We'll play that out. 1 more land and we can start attacking. There's Blooming Marsh, we knew about that. Alright, Quick Study is actually pretty good. Happy to see that. I think we're going to fire that off now. Don't hate those. Pass the turn. On it with Takenuma, Channel, and they put Kalan into their hand. Journey on, create a map. Kalan into play. Map, trigger, Redain on top. Land into play, we draw into a Pathway. I think we'll play that as a black source. And we're going to play out Kalidas. Redain, enters play. When it attacks for 3, Concealed Courtyard, put it into hand. We will block. Gain 3 life, drawn to a Censor. And they have 1 in hand. Alright, Ritual of Suit. Wipe their board, 2 zombies, combat, attack for 3. And that does it. They scoop it up. We're 3-2. And just like that, a feel-good story for the underdogs. Team Sharknado notches the best and only winning record with a 3-2. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you to Harold for the donation decks. And if you want your deck featured in a future video, you can find the deets in the description below. Until next time, you know the deal, my friends. Be well.